Hi, I'm Dave from Thomas Jacks, and this is the Axion MEGATEST Part 4, comparing how good each of these Axions are at identifying dogs of different sizes and their owners from 20 meters to 200. Just like the other Axion MEGATESTs, it's a real-time side-by-side comparison of the Axion XM30F, the Axion 2 XQ35 with its more powerful thermal sensor, and the Axion 2 LRF XG35 with its huge 640 by 480 12 micron thermal sensor. And this is our setting for our identification range test. I'm filming in daylight today, so you see what I see on my normal camera, alongside the thermal images for these Axions. It's 500 meters to the end of the path, and as a popular dog walking spot, you'll see how well the Axions detect different sized dogs and their owners at around 200 meters. And importantly, as they approach my position, the point at which each Axion can definitely identify them as dogs and identify the dog owners as men or women. From here, I'll set each Axion to record exactly the same scene under the same conditions. They're all set to white hot with identical brightness and contrast for a genuine comparison, and I'll do my best to reposition and refocus the three Axions and my camera to follow the action. But I've recorded a few passes in case anything momentarily goes off-piste, and to help you gauge where things are when you think they're identifiable, I've added a couple of distance markers. So release the hounds and on with the MEGATEST. At 200 meters, the XG can ID these ladies, and a fraction later, it safely IDs the dogs. Whereas it's not until about 150 meters now, when the XQ can identify the dog walker's gender. And now the XM, which is about 120 meters. And as they approach 100 meters, it's clear all three can comfortably identify the people and these medium-sized dogs. It's worth noting that each thermal is set to display a picture-in-picture window that magnifies the center of the viewfinder. It's tricky to control the precise direction of all three on this test, but it shows you that digital zoom is limited by the number of pixels in the sensor, which helps explain why the zoom on the XG looks better than the XQ, which in turn looks better than the XM. So let's see another pass, this time starting off at around 400 meters. So we can try an industry standard ID test and check the distance we can discern men from women. All the Axions easily detect the three people at this range, but let's start speeding up the action. Okay, now we're at about 300 meters and the XG starts to identify the person on the left is likely to be female, even without any zoom. At 230 to 200 meters, she's clearly a she looking through the eyepiece of the XG. And at 150 meters, the XQ can identify her too. Now the XM can ID her at about 130 meters. So slowing down the action, there's a side path on the right at 70 meters where that dog walker has just sprung from. His dogs are safely ID'd on all three Axions at that range. But notice the difference in thermal detail on clothing, hot parts of the skin, the dog's fur and their eyes. All that, along with a fast 50Hz frame rate on all these Axions to see movement clearly, is exactly the detail you should be looking for to help you identify things. And while these finish with a sprint for the line, let's have one more pass with some different sized dogs. While it's easy to spot the fella in the foreground with the two Yorkshire Terriers, all these Axions can also recognise three other figures with three dog-sized animals at around 400 meters. There's perhaps not quite enough detail yet to safely identify them as dogs rather than foxes, although the XG is getting close to that point. But all these Axions recognise they are people and animals at 400 meters, day or night, whereas my camera with its 105mm lens does little more than sense movement in broad daylight. Slowing down the action, our Terrier walker is now coming into the sweet spot for IDing small animals on the XM in these conditions, within 150 meters. Whereas the XG is already in the IDing sweet spot at 300 meters plus, in the background easily identifying a large pointer or Labrador, even without any zoom on it. Now the Axion XQ at about 200 meters I think safely IDs the Labrador. From here all the Axions continue in their ID sweet spot, providing increasing levels of detail as the subjects approach my filming position. So if you want a thermal that can ID anything from a terrier to a fella up to 100 or 150 meters, all these Axions can easily do it. But for a little extra, an XQ could double or an XG maybe even treble that IDing range, giving you lots more image detail to play with. Now why not check out the rest of these Axion megatests here, or subscribe. I'm Dave at Thomas Jacks. Thanks for watching.